Hello, folks. Welcome back to Driving and Dragons. Got a crossover event here. Gonna do both some D&D reacts as well as some alignment videos. Gonna go through this entire series at least as much as I can. Now, generally when I do reaction videos, I try my absolute best to only look at videos that I haven't seen, or at least haven't seen in their entirety. I've seen some of these. And it's kind of hard to have not. They were sent up to me, hey, what do you think about these, by some folks on Discord, but at the same time, it's also their 10-year-old videos. So this is not some situation where it's it's a big stretch to say, have you seen them? But it's a set of alignment videos, and from the early looks, he actually is one of the closest to getting it right that I have seen in the TTRPG online space. Now, I'm going to be recording these all pretty quickly. I'm going to be pumping them out for members on a very regular schedule here. The members are going to get them. Basically, if you see a video drop, the members are going to get it that day. They're going to get the next one that day. So there is some membership benefit there. They are all on alignment. I am going to do my absolute best here, and I may have to do this with some editing or something. He has a major disconnect when it comes to his audio. His entrance music, buffer, title screen stuff is extremely loud, while his actual voice is extremely low. So I don't know how much me cranking up and turning down the volume as I'm recording is going to have an effect on my video side, or if it's you're still going to get your ears blown out by his. I'm going to do some testing. I'm going to do some looking. I may have to edit out his actual front, his actual lead-in bumper, just because there's such a massive discrepancy in the audio. So fair warning on that. These are 10-year-old YouTube videos from a channel with 1.7K subs from 10 years ago. So do with that what you will when it comes to production quality, that sort of thing. Now, before we get cracking, everybody please remember that Corvid Codex is live. Volume 1 is ready to buy. There are links for both the $5 ebook and the $15 premium paperback down in the description, and I'll probably drop them in the pinned comment as well. Fantastic literature, guys. Go ahead, support that project, because you're not just supporting me, you're supporting several other members of the TTRPG community who came together and wrote and produced this this work. The artists are all TTRPG artists. The writers are all TTRPG designers, players, people you know and have seen on different streams and on X and all over the place in Discord. So show them some love. Pick up a copy. Like I said, links are down below. As for me, if you want to support what I do here on the channel, just take a look over there. My Patreon, the channel memberships, super chats, super thanks, even just getting your friends to come in and sub to push me up to the 1,000 subscriber limit where I can start generating the ad revenue from YouTube. All that stuff helps the channel projects and what we're doing here to try and give back to the community and just support the project as a whole of putting these kind of videos out. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get cracking. I'm going to go ahead and flip over there and get the screen share online here, and we're going to look at Guildmaster Dan and his series on 9 alignments. And we're going to go ahead and put those in the same playlists, both with D&D Reacts and in my alignment playlist, so we can continue to explore alignment and its various uses and how it can enhance your game, whether you use it as a mechanical feature or if you only use it as a D&D type thing or just a roleplay mechanic. So let's go ahead and get cracking.
Hello there, I'm Guildmaster Dan, and welcome to a series I've been meaning to do since the inception of my channel. The alignments in Dungeons & Dragons are something that I've always wanted to look at in depth on my channel, precisely because it's so hotly debated by so many gamers out there. Now, of course, my title for this series, Dungeons & Dragons Alignment Done Right, was made in good humor, but I want to take this chance to lay out my intentions for the series now before we get started. Naturally, just like any other mechanic in a game, Rules are meant to be interpreted, hence the need for a designated arbitrator of those rules. As such, there are many different interpretations out there of how the Dungeons & Dragons alignments are defined. I'm only going to say this once, and now. What is to follow in the next 10 segments of this series is my interpretation of how the alignments in Dungeons & Dragons are defined. I will no longer refer to it as opinion or interpretation, so be prepared. And without further ado, allow me to present Dungeons & Dragons, Alignment Done Right.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start off with this. The fact of the matter is, one of the core parts of alignment in Dungeons and Dragons and how it has to function as a system, as I've gone over multiple times, it 1000% must be an objective measure. It can't be a matter of interpretation or a matter of opinion. It must be objective. That said, it only has to be objective in an internally consistent manner. So, you as a game master can come in and change those definitions to suit your world to a certain extent, as long as you maintain objectivity and consistency in how alignment is portrayed, utilized, and adjudicated within that game world. As a whole, though, especially when we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, there are strong, hard, objective definitions that are really not open to interpretation. The interpretation is only on the kind of minuscule scale of, what was the intent, or did the intent override the result in this case, or did the result override the intent, which I don't think that should ever happen when it comes to alignment. Intent will matter. Result can not override intent, but intent can, in a way, override result, as long as we're not crossing into negligence. But all that aside, objective definition is, in fact, very, very important. So let's see what he has to say. I am going to go ahead and start off with this real quick. One part that I think is relatively important to think about when it comes to this is almost all of those little charts that he showed, like almost without exception, they're almost all wrong, because they're almost all every one of them is entirely based off of a portrayal, like a skin deep portrayal of a lot of these characters. And I've seen a few of them where the meme will get one or two characters right, but I think the standing record right now is a chart that I think got like 5 that were close enough to right for me to not care about. But even those had some logical inconsistencies in the selections for some of the other characters on it. So it's kind of funny that he starts off with those charts, because they are notoriously incorrect.
Alignment by far is the most hotly debated topic in Dungeons & Dragons. This stems from the belief that the alignments themselves are subjective and can be interpreted or argued. In this way, one player's interpretation of lawful good can be different from another player's interpretation of lawful good. Each gamer's unique moral codes and definitions come to clash over how they define each alignment. This notion is false. What most gamers tend to forget is that the alignment system was meant to describe very specific sets of behaviors. As such,
So he's actually, this is one of those things where I say he's very close to correct. They are designed to describe very specific things. However, by using the terminology sets of behaviors, you lead to a problem that comes with alignment as it stands with Dungeons and Dragons. And that is, or alignment as it comes to how the players interpret it and how they work with it. And that is that these players have just an overwhelming tendency to keep it on surface level, to keep it about just, what my decisions are today and what my decisions are in this exact instance, as opposed to thinking about it on that macro level of, this is literally how my character thinks. And it's not, oh, he chooses to do good instead of evil after considering all the options. It's literally his brain never contemplates the evil as being an option because he's good. It doesn't even bring up that option.
In this case, the notions of good and evil are objective and cannot be argued or interpreted, for they mean something very specific. The same can be said for lawful and chaotic, though they come with their own problems, namely that the nomenclature infers unintended implications.
Definitely agree with that one too, and I am going to be stopping him a little bit more than I do in normal reactions, mainly because if you caught the timestamp, his videos are pretty short, so it gives us plenty of time to expand. He's absolutely right. The ethical alignment, and I even said this in my video on chaotic neutral, I have always had a serious issue with the term chaotic. And I get it where it comes from. In the original D&D, you did not have a 9 alignment system. You basically had good and lawful, or you had lawful, neutral, and chaotic, and then later lawful, good, chaotic, and neutral. And chaotic was just the encompassing of everything that was neither neutral nor good, or neutral nor lawful. That was the way it was set up. And it was set up when alignment was more of a faction system and less an ethical and moral framework. And in that particular situation, chaos is fine. However, when we move to the modern usage of alignment, and when I say modern, we're talking like 1980, 1979, something like that, when the 9 alignments became the norm. When we get to that point, it may have been a little bit later than that, it may have been the mid 80s. But anyway, when we get to that point where the 9 alignments basically become the norm, and where we move into it as a framework for how our characters think, feel, act, and interact with the world, and what basically drives their id, chaos in particular carries a lot of baggage with it, and even lawful does, because people get hung up all the time that lawful means, oh, if it's a law on the books, you 100% follow it. Oh, you can't, there's an unlaw, or there's an execution going on. The paladin can't stop that because it's a lawful execution and he would be violating the law. No, he absolutely can, especially if he knows, for instance, that some unethical, which would be unlawful, and even if they're technically not illegal, but some unethical or amoral or deceptive means were used to, say, railroad those people into that conviction, or that the society is fundamentally flawed and failing and is at odds with the code of ethics that paladin is pushing. He absolutely can stop that execution at that point in time without it being a violation of the law. So he's absolutely right here. The terminology law and chaos carries a tremendous amount of baggage. If it were simply ethical and unethical, or principled and unprincipled, it would be a lot easier.
The easiest way to clear up these misconceptions is by assigning new terms that more closely resemble the intended ideals of the alignment chart. In this way, we see good and evil becoming selflessness versus selfishness.
There you go. If you watched my series on alignment, if you looked at the very beginning, if you looked at the breakdowns of good, evil, lawful, and neutral individually, what do I call them? I call them ethical, unethical, selfish, and selfless as a general practice. Right here, it's more or less 100% dead on. principled and unprincipled, ethical and unethical, however you want to look at it, that is pretty much 100% correct. The only thing I don't like about going with principle or ethical and unprincipled and unethical is that it's a little bit, it's kind of adjacent to that. It's not really quite there. Lawful tends to look long-term and big picture. Chaotic tends to look short-term and immediate detail. As a result, that leads to them throwing away things like principles and ethics if they're in the chaotic end of things, because they want to adjust everything as it suits the situation. Whereas on the principled and lawful side, they look at it and they say, hey, we may need to find a different way to work around this, because we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater and save this one situation by violating something that, say, 9 times out of 10 does more good for more people. This is right 99 times out of 100. We don't want to go ahead and change it just because 1 time out of 100 it's wrong.
On the other hand, we see lawful and chaotic becoming principled and unprincipled. Now, very important, neutrality remains the same, as it simply describes the range between the 4 extremes. Now, we will talk more in depth about each of the 9 primary alignments and how their new nomenclature better describes them in future segments. For now, I will simply note that the reason neutrality does not have to change is due to the nature of the chart itself. Next to believing the alignments to be subjective, the biggest misuse of the chart is this false pretense in its rigidity. Many players believe the 9 alignments to be fixed points that help players to roleplay their characters. This is wrong on 2 levels. First, the character's place on the chart is fluid. As they live their lives, they'll flow this way and that on the 2 axes. That is because the alignments are not there to help a player roleplay their character, but to help a dungeon master describe how the world perceives that character in that moment. Well,
I'm going to definitely disagree with him on that. This is a place where I think he's got it wrong. They are a North Star that guides how to roleplay your character and how your player acts in the world. Now, he's not entirely wrong. The game master probably should use them in that way. And a character is not 100% married to an individual alignment. People grow and change. Good Catholics become apostates. Terrible sinners find their way to the church. You have criminals who get out and dedicate their life to making sure that nobody else ever goes that direction ever again. You have good people who reach a breaking point and do utterly heinous and terrible things and completely change the way their whole brain works through trauma or through just, as I like to say, time and pressure makes diamonds. But time and pressure also destroys foundations. So maybe you didn't start off as a diamond, but the pressure of the world, the pressure of your mission, the pressure of the quest, the influence of the other party members slowly moved you into that direction. And yes, alignment for a character, for an individual character, is not 100,000% fixed. The issue I have with the way he states this is that he brings it more surface level, where he makes it seem like these can change, not necessarily on a whim. He's not that bad, but almost as if it's like, oh, well, you can make this shift over a short period of time. We're just going to fluctuate throughout our life. We're going to be more principled and less principled and good and evil. On the surface, maybe. To go back to a Catholic principle, we're all sinners who fall short of the grace and glory of God. But that doesn't mean that we aren't always striving for it. And when it comes to alignment, your paladin is lawful good. Now, your paladin's paragon lawful good. Let's take paladin out of it, because he actually does have surface level stuff where he is so dedicated to that thought process that he thought it would be a good idea to literally marry himself to the church and marry himself to that code of ethics. Let's just say you're a lawful good fighter. The fact of the matter is you're always a lawful good fighter, but throughout your life, you may act closer to lawful neutral or closer to neutral good or closer to true neutral. And other times you're going to be a paragon of lawful good, because just because our core nature is to think in a certain way and to resolve conflict and resolve problems in a specific manner does not mean that we always live up even to our own principles or our own standards. We all fall short of our own standards, and we all have days where we just go way better than we thought we ever were. We are better versions of ourselves than we thought possible some days. So the fluctuation can be there, but I don't think he's describing it in the right way. Going back just a hair, I also think he's got a little bit of an issue with neutral. Neutral, as I described it and as I put forth in my videos, the correct way to look at neutral in the Dungeons and Dragons specifically context is there are actually two different kinds of neutral. He's fine with one of them. However, he's fine in like what we would call like the apathetic neutral, the one that's really not dedicated to anything or doesn't have any strong moral compulsion one way or another or ethical compulsion one way or another. He's fine there, but he is missing out on the concept of somebody who is dedicated to balance as a philosophy in and of itself, which does exist within the D&D world, in particular in the class of the Druid.
Most people believe the alignments to be represented rigidly, like, say, this.
Let's take a look here. Here to fight for truth, justice, American way. If I ever kill you, you'll be awake. You'll be facing me and you'll be armed. Government should be afraid of their people. Let's see, prime directive prevents me from helping you. All right, so you got one right there that's absolutely idiotic, which, granted, these are all idiotic because, as he put it, represented rigidly. True neutral being Treebeard? No. Treebeard is very much like a neutral good or a lawful good character. The Ents are absolutely not neutral. They were neutral in that conflict, in that they basically view the universe in tree terms, where it's like these things are going to pass. These things will pass because it's just one of these many. I live 1,000 years. What happens in this 10 years is like what happens in a day to a human. So I'm not going to get all up in arms over something that happens in a day until I see that I'm literally losing everything that's dear to me because I'm not paying attention to it. That's not an aspect of neutrality. That is an aspect of, laziness is not even the correct word. It's an aspect of basically being unable to see the forest for the trees, ironically. But yeah, let's see here. Which ones does this get right? Superman, at least classically, is lawful good. I would say that Jean-Luc Picard is also lawful good. He is not a neutral character by any stretch of the imagination. I don't even know who the guy in the second one is. Like, that's not what I'm familiar with. No, V for Vendetta is definitely not chaotic good. He's maybe chaotic neutral. I'm not even certain that he's chaotic because he's rebelling against a specific government. As I said, Treebeard is definitely not true neutral. Jack Sparrow probably is chaotic neutral. Darth Vader is lawful evil. That's a good one there. The aliens are absolutely not neutral evil because they lack the actual capacity for moral judgment or for ethical judgment. They're basically animals. Yeah, I would say, at least as portrayed by Heath Ledger, the Joker would fall into chaotic evil. But so we got basically, if I'm being very generous, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are right on this one. So this one's better than most, but the ones that gets wrong are terribly wrong.
It is much closer to, say, this.
Okay, so let's take a look at this one. All right, these are all anime characters. This is not going to be good for me. Let me know in the comments, based on if you've watched my other alignment videos, if these are correct. I mean, I guess I can try and go off of the descriptions. As long as the strong oppresses the weak, I will resist. Maybe, maybe not. That could very well be a lawful good character, depending on the nature of the strong and the weak and a lot of pieces there. That one's kind of way too vague. I have to build a world where Nunali can at least find happiness. No, once again, far too personal. And I guess it kind of maybe points towards neutral good, but it really just points to he could be neutral evil and just really like that one person. That's the issue there. As a matter of fact, that actually points him away from good. Those with power fear us, those without power seek us. I mean, and once again, I mean, what's the driving force here? And are they a legitimate authority? We don't know. The only ones who should kill are those who are prepared to be killed. That once, basically, I don't even think I'm going to go through the rest of these. Let me just speed run them real quick. No matter how hard you try, things won't change. I was not who I was wrong as the world. So as not to waste blood that has already been shed. We have no choice but to shed more blood. I'll use you up, then throw you away like a piece of trash. That's the closest one to accurate so far. You want orders? Here's your orders. Comfort me. Maybe. Most of these are so unbelievably vague that they don't really fit any of these alignments except neutral evil. And this one, neutral evil, just based on the sentence at the bottom, I do not know any of these characters in order to give you a description. I'll use you up and then throw you away like a piece of trash. That could be literally any of the evil alignments. So I guess falling in neutral is not too terribly wrong.
Or if you prefer this.
How many of these do we have? No, Walter White does not fit all of these. Walter White, I mean, honestly, I think Walter White is probably starts off lawful evil and starts to drift towards chaotic throughout the starts to drift away from it. He might be neutral evil drifting towards chaotic evil throughout the series. He's always got that capacity there. He just doesn't have the impetus to push for it later. That's really all there is to it. He, on the surface, may start off in one of the other alignments, but at the end of the day, you can tell by his actions that I'm doing it for my family, I'm doing it to provide whatever is just really a facade. It is very surface level, where deep down inside he behaves otherwise.
As we can see in the latter charts, a single character can represent any of the 9 different alignments, depending upon their behaviors in that given period of time. With this in mind, for the players out there, beyond your initial choice in your character's starting point, don't concern yourselves with alignment. Simply role-play your character, learn their motivations and their perceptions, and act accordingly. After all, a chaotic evil character can believe themselves to be lawful good the entire time. And Dungeon Masters, likewise, don't concern your players with their alignment. Simply keep track of their position on the chart and follow through with any consequences of any shifts. It is always sobering for a cleric or paladin to stop hearing the voice of their god, despite the fact that they thought they were behaving accordingly the entire time.
All right, so the only part of that was in any way accurate was the last part. Yes, Game Master, don't sit there and constantly warn your character. Maybe a few, or your player rather. Maybe a few subtle warnings, or a few subtle warnings rather. Don't sit there. Really, aren't you lawful good? Man, that doesn't sound very lawful good to me. I don't think your character would do that. You need to rethink that. Stop doing that. Maybe once or twice, maybe if it's something really stupid and egregious, but as a general rule, let your players play their characters and adjust them. And just like he said, it can be very sobering and very humorous for a character to suddenly find out how much alignment matters when they go to cast a spell and it fails because they've drifted too far from their god's alignment. or when a druid calls on animals and the animals attack them because they've drifted too far from neutrality. They no longer have the connection with nature or whatever the case may be. That can actually be a great way to introduce a character to, hey, this stuff has, these actions have consequences. However, as a player, you absolutely should concern yourself with your alignment, because you should be using that alignment to say, this is who this character is. Now, I'm not saying you start with your alignment and build your character, but just like backstory, when you're thinking about your character's life and how they've been influenced and who they are and what makes that character tick and how they think and how they would behave, alignment is a beacon for that. As I've said before in the past, one of the things about alignment, one of the great uses of alignment in the D&D game is the ability for you as a player to effectively play somebody who on a fundamental level doesn't think the way you do. I am not a chaotic evil person. Okay. My brain does not think in the complete disregard for everyone else, just what I want right now mentality. It doesn't function that way. The thoughts that occur to somebody who is that level of psychotic do not occur to me. That level of criminal mindset doesn't happen for me as a person. So if I want to play a chaotic evil character and I start my decision-making process from square one as, does this benefit me the most in this particular moment? That gives me a way to suss out how somebody who thinks so radically different than me would behave in this situation. So yeah, you should think about your alignment. You just shouldn't think about it as a mechanical term. You should think about it as a core aspect of your character.
I hope you found this quick overview of the alignment chart thought-provoking and at least not entirely infuriating. If not, then prepare yourself for the oncoming migraine, as next time we begin our look at individual alignments, starting with what most gamers consider the easiest to define, chaotic evil.
All right, we are going to be skipping his outro, because like I said, the difference in the audio is just extreme. So I don't know how much that translates over into the recording. I'll find out here in a few minutes, I guess, as I start to continue to record these and edit them and that sort of thing. But anyway, let me know what you think below. I hope you're enjoying this one. I hope you that being able to just depose my own alignment, theory crafting, my own alignment definitions, my own presentation against somebody who is at least in the same area of thought, gives you a clearer picture of what I put forth in my alignment videos. But let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you guys on the next one, when apparently we're going to go in and start talking about chaotic evil. See you guys on the next one.